Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Soul-u-tions podcast. Okay, Ethan and I have been absolutely, totally geeking out because we realized we both saw Paul McCartney in Atlanta over the last 2 days. Oh my gosh, it was so amazing. And now that I'm thinking about it, it really ties in a lot to what I want to talk to you about today, which is about living a life of your dreams and the things that get in the way of living the life of your dreams, especially if you are a midlife woman. And I know what you're probably thinking. You're like, oh, that part of my life, that's ancient history, those dreams, et cetera, et cetera. But they're not. You are at the perfect place in your life. I promise you to think back on what that original dream was and to tap back into it, or just come up with another new dream for yourself. And yeah, because there's so much life left. So listen to the introduction and I'll meet you on the other side.
Einstein said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." Most everyone in the world is solving their problems the wrong way. Our problems come from our thinking, and we can solve them with our thinking. So, whether you're at your lowest, just trying to grow, or whether you are trying to sustain growth over your lifetime, join us as we push the boundaries of our current thinking and redefine how we find Soul-u-tions.
The hope and the strength and the love and the smiles and the laughter of friends and family. Add it up, you'll find no limit to the possibilities.
Okay, today's topic, I think this is going to be a 2-part series. So we'll do this episode and another episode on living a life of your dreams. And literally today, I spent a good deal of my morning interpreting 2 real life dreams that I had this morning. And in spending that time with the dreams and what they meant, it was such a fabulous, just such a fabulous experience for me that I want to share it with you and give you the framework that I use to interpret my dreams. But it also, in interpreting that dream for myself, I also tapped into a larger collective dream, I think, for women who are in that midlife sandwich generation like you and like I, where you have young adult kids who you're launching and you're helping shepherd these beautiful babies of yours into young adulthood and giving them the tools that they need to be able to stay in touch with their dreams and discern, right? Discern what were maybe childhood dreams or maybe adult dreams, when to let a dream go for another dream. But also that point in your own life where you still have so much life to live and love to give. And how do you tap back into your own dreams? And when you can't, this tool that I'm going to share with you today, which is a lot about noticing things, noticing the clues that you get in your everyday life and in your sleep life, in your dream life, that will help point you in those directions. So I don't think it was a coincidence. And that's a big word in the world of interpreting your dreams and living your dreams. Carl Jung is really one of the fathers of dream analysis, and Jungian dream analysis is something that I'm going to lean into here. And he's just very deeply spiritual and talks about this idea of the collective consciousness and tapping into that collective consciousness as a as a resource for ourselves that's available to ourselves. And it's something larger than our rational, logical brains that we spend so much of our day-to-day time in. And for that reason, if no other reason, this is such an important podcast for you to listen to, because I hope it opens up a new world for you, literally a world within you, and opens you in new ways to the world outside of you. I'm also going to share with you, because I know some people are a little, think that could be a little woo-woo, although, Carl Jung is a very well-known historical figure in the father in psychotherapy. But in doing this research on interpreting our dreams, I also want you to know there's this biblical, mystical history that goes along with our dreams as well. And so for those of you who may not put as much trust in something like interpreting your dreams, this was something I thought important, especially if if you come from a faith tradition where reading your Bible or reading your holy text is an important thing to you. Dreams are all in the Bible. Like, God comes to his people oftentimes in dreams. And those stories are so beautifully documented for us in the Bible. And when I was reading that today, I thought, wow, we forget about that way of God talking to us. We kind of, I don't know, I don't really think of it. And I think it's just a post-Enlightenment type of situation where ever since the Enlightenment, when science became the big thing for everybody, which has been a great thing for everybody, but as history goes, right, the winners write history and they tend to overwrite the history from before because they want to establish the powerfulness of this new season of history. So in the Enlightenment is when we really step into this amazing topic of science and proving things and seeing is believing. Whereas prior to that, we probably, this would be a term from someone who lives in a post-Enlightenment time, but we call it superstitious, right? We have that term about things. But I know for so many of us with strong faith traditions and faith traditions that arise out of sacred texts, dreams, really reconnecting to this fact and idea that God has spoken to people for generation in their dreams. And I think when you think about that, you might want to think about, why not me? Why not you? Why wouldn't he still be speaking to all of us ordinary people, just like he has always done in our dreams? And so for that reason, if no other reason, I just hope you will stay curious through this podcast and listen to it, because I promise you there are going to be just so many nuggets for you to take with you, and a new way, again, like I said, for you to touch into your inner and outer world. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about this dream and dream analysis. So I've kind of already introduced this idea that I rely on Jungian dream analysis, but I'm also very interested in this biblical-based analysis that I read in and we'll put these in the show notes, or actually, we're close enough friends by now, you being a listener and me thinking about, what you might enjoy. You could always just email me, Tara, Tara, at Tara Simkins, no P, SIMKINS.com, and say, hey, Tara, would you send me those links that you mentioned about the blogs and the podcast you did on dreams? Okay. And I'll send them to you. I'd love to. But a gentleman by the name of Bill Gaultiere, Gaultiere, talks about the work that he does as a minister in interpreting dreams and how in the Bible, this is from his blog, in the Bible, people knew that their dreams may be from God, and so they listened carefully to their dreams as a source of guidance. When they didn't understand the spiritual meaning of a dream, then they'd seek the help of a discerning prophet. He said most dreams, however, are not prophetic, although I can tell you, I do think that our dreams can prepare us for a future that we may have already sensed is coming through other kind of feedback that we've picked up in the world. And I'll tell you a story about how that happened to me back in 2008. So I do think whether they are prophetic or they can just kind of help us into, and you I hope you hear what I'm getting at here as this midlife woman who has a dream awaiting for her, right? Help you, point you in the direction of what that dream is. He says, most dreams are not prophetic, but still may be from God as an opportunity for greater self-awareness and discernment of God's wisdom for your life. With normal nighttime dreams, there are psychological and spiritual angles to understand them. As John Calvin taught in his Institutes of the Christian Religion, which I have to say, I had no idea that John Calvin taught this, especially as a Catholic, not having read his work deeply. But he taught that the knowledge of God and self are connected. Isn't that such an important reminder? Knowledge of God and self are connected. Listening to your dreams is helpful for all of us and is especially important as part of psychotherapy or spiritual direction. Okay, now, typically there's stuff in your dreams that is going to seem random. Why? Why is this? Well, it's because your unconscious mind, and what do I mean by unconscious mind? Okay. Let's say you have 70 to 80,000 thoughts a day. We are only aware of a tiny percentage of the amount of thoughts that we have per day. Like generally about 15% of our thoughts are conscious thoughts. That means thoughts of which we actually are aware we are thinking. All of the 85% of the what would that be? Like the other 60,000 thoughts that we have are going under the radar of our awareness. They're in our unconscious. And yet they are driving the decisions that we make in our life, how we continually show up in our relationships. These are the reasons why we really have a hard time breaking patterns and habits that are not working in our relationships. It's because they're being driven by these unconscious thoughts that we have. And so your unconscious mind is pulling events from your day and from your past to tell a story. It is weaving a narrative together. It's trying to make sense of your experiences. And I love this because this is what Gautier says. The images and scenes are like a kaleidoscope. This does make me think of the Beatles. Sgt. Pepper, all the things. And by the way, Paul did say that Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is not about LSD. It's about, I think, Julian Lennon had a little girl in his class named Lucy, and he had a crush on her, and he drew a picture of her. And on the picture, he put like stars. And so it was called Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. That was the origination of that song. So anyway, that was kind of just a now kind of thing. But the images and scenes are like a kaleidoscope that may be interesting or funny, but they're also probably confusing. And this is why we tend to just dismiss our dreams, I think, or shrug them off. But if you we'll take the time to do, like I did this morning, and you're going to have the ability to do that after you listen to this podcast, to dive deeper into just the random stuff that appear in your dreams. Take the time to, write them down and to make some associations with them. It's crazy what they can reveal to you about what's lying underneath the surface, the deeper emotions that you have, and perhaps like the greater meaning that's waiting for you in your life, and maybe even some spiritual significance. Okay, so first I'm going to give you these 2 frameworks, and I want you to write them down or come back and listen to this at another time and write them down. But this is the T-TAC method of dream interpretation. Now, this method was developed by a guy named David Benner, who is a Christian psychologist and spiritual director. And it is a method of dream interpretation that if you want to read more about, you could grab his book, Sacred Companions, and he sets this forth there. So the basic idea is to treat your dream as a story or a narrative. I want you to think about a movie, like you've just bought your tickets at the theater and you've walked into the movie, you've got your Coke, you've got your popcorn, you're ready for it just to play across the big screen. This is the method that we want you to think about, and the relationship of you as a viewer to your dreams when you're doing this. And he says, of course, that the purpose of using this method in interpreting your dreams is to seek to understand the unconscious meaning psychologically and spiritually, the message that your dreams have for you. So T-TAC is an acronym. And let's start first. T, and then it's hyphen, capital T, capital A, capital Q. So the first T stands for title. This is the title of the movie title, right? The story title. If your dream was a Hollywood movie or a play on Broadway, what would you call it? So he suggests, and this is the way I used it today too, like I just put T title and I left the space underneath it. I just left it blank. And the reason is, titles for all like script writers, movie producers, all the people, you might have a working title, right? Titles actually come to us last and not first. So we want to leave that blank. And then we're going to drop down to the next T, which is theme. And theme is what's the main point of the storyline of your dream. And you can just describe this in one sentence phrase, right? Okay, just leave that space blank too, and then come down to the A. A stands for affect, and that's AFFECT, the affect. What is the affect, or what are the emotions that are going on for you in this dream? When I was teaching the Soul-Shine Labs class today, we were talking about this same topic as well. And I was sharing with them, some people, they're like, and I'm sure I dream, but I just never remember the dream. And if that's you, I'm going to share with you what I shared with her, which is, oftentimes we don't remember the dream, but we often remember a feeling. We wake up with a feeling, right? There might be a sense of sadness or a sense of longing or some other feeling that you wake up with. And that emotion can just be enough to start with when you are beginning to pay attention to your dreams. And so, you don't have to know every part for every dream or every part in the full dream. But if you can kind of just let yourself hone in, right? Kind of sit back. And again, we're going to drop down from our rational brain and the thoughts that we're aware of down into this other brain that has, just the murkiness, right, of that brain and the thoughts. And just let something bubble up and just trust that that's the emotion. Okay. Whatever you feel, put it into words. You are moving from the surface level of the dream to its deeper meaning. And the final letter in the acronym is Q, and that stands for question. So, what question is left unanswered in this dream? This, to me, is like one of the greatest takeaways from a dream. And again, I was sharing this with the ladies in the labs today. I, after using this dream interpretation framework for myself this morning, what I really came away with were about 4 or 5 very important questions, not answers, but questions. And questions, what I love is what the poet Rilke said about living into the questions, right? These questions are the message from the dream, and those are the invitation for me to live into, to be able to live into my own answers. And I think that is such a beautiful place, especially as a woman in midlife. And you're, the part about being the mom part is wrapping up in the way that you have enjoyed it. And you have this opportunity to step into all this time and space. And it's like, what's next? And you can't really imagine what's next for you yet. But even learning to ask questions beyond what's next, right? Like, what do I like? What might I enjoy? What do I want to just do today that would bring me some sense of fulfillment or some sense of happiness? Or what might I just want to notice today as I go about my day? What if I just kept like a waking dream journal of all the random things that I came into contact with today? And then later, I kind of used this framework that I'm using for sleeping dreams for my daytime to kind of lead me into the answers of that question, what is next? And for me, the reason why that is important is because it is helpful. When I think about what is next for me, and when so many of my clients think about that question, the vastness of the emptiness and the unknowing on the other side of that question just absolutely freezes us, right? It just is too much. It's just too overwhelming. And so if you can use this in your day, just say, okay, today I'm simply going to notice all the random things that happened to me today and write them down. And by random, I mean the things that you usually overlook that happen in your day. And then I'm just going to kind of keep a little record, or at the end of the day, I'm just going to say, oh yeah, okay, let's start with the beginning. What happened? My alarm went off. I didn't want to wake up. I was stuck in this inception dream and I couldn't dig myself out of it, right? And then from there, you can go to, I got the weirdest phone call today. This really did happen to me today. I had 6 phone calls from a woman who kept calling. It's from North Augusta, South Carolina area code, and it says North Augusta, South Carolina, and she keeps calling me to say, I want a consultation with you. That doesn't happen to me. Like someone like that, a stranger calling me 6 times within a couple of hours span. So that's something I'm going to write down in my random things today. And then at the end of it, use kind of this dream analysis to say, I wonder what themes I see emerging in my day. What was the affect of the day? Like, what were the feelings I felt today? And the great thing about that is it gives you room to pay attention to some of the more uncomfortable feelings that you felt. You could have been feeling feelings like grief or sadness, and then you can ask yourself, what are the questions that my grief and my sadness are inviting me to answer, to live into the answer beyond that. Okay, so that's the first portion of our series on dream analysis. In the next episode, we're going to go into the Jungian questions, and I'm going to tell you how I use both of these together to interpret my dream. So I hope that you will stay tuned and make sure, if you like this, to do me a couple of favors. One, if you like this, I would love for you to share this with a friend, right? Think about it. If you're feeling this way about not knowing what's next for you, I guarantee you there is someone else that you know who is feeling the same way. And if you forward this episode to them, super easy in your podcast, app, you just hit that little forward button and send them a text message and say, hey, I really enjoyed this podcast episode and I'm thinking of you. I know you're going through a transition in your life, the transition from, your kids leaving the nest and embarking on the next chapter. And I just thought of you. That's such a great ripple effect of listening to podcasts. It's sharing things that we like with the people that we love. And the other thing is, I hope that you will subscribe. It's so easy in your app. You just hit subscribe. There's usually that little bookmark kind of thing. And you subscribe because I want to make sure you don't miss this next episode. Even if you listen to the Soul-u-tions podcast pretty regularly, if you haven't subscribed, you might be missing something. So make sure that you subscribe. All right. Until next time, I hope you enjoy playing around with the T-TAC method, either in your dreams or in your daydreams. And I hope that you enjoy thinking about this reminder about how, God may be kind of talking to you just like he's talked to all those people throughout human history, plain old ordinary people like us through our dreams. Until next time, thank you.
I ain't done living the life I'm meant to lead. And I ain't done loving the ones who cared for me. The hope and the strength and the love and the smiles and the laughter of friends and family. Add it up, you'll find no limit to the possibilities. The left and the right and some faith in the fight and your courage is all